insufficient evidence. It's to provide a roadmap to what the evidence we expect to present in this courtroom over the next week and a half, and to, in this case, explain to you in advance so you can better understand. This case began a little over a year ago, February 9th. That was a Thursday, little afternoon. And it began when Richard Bonner, who had been to a nearby copying shop, forgot some of the items he had copied and left behind. So he pulled into the entrance of the Scioto Grove Metro Park at 5172 Jackson Pike here in Franklin County, just outside of Grove City and just off of Stringtown Road. And as he pulled in to turn around to go back to that copy shop to retrieve some of the things he thought he'd left behind, he looked over to the side, and it was a cold day, very cold day, and there was a little bit of snow cover, but he thought he saw what he told the police later was a mannequin laying about 15 yards off the entrance. As he stopped his car and went a little closer, however, he saw the nude body of a young woman, their arm across her face like this, and he noticed blood on her face. And he immediately knew then that it was not a mannequin. He immediately went to his car, called 911. The medics responded, found a young woman who later was identified, and you'll hear about how that was done, as Reagan Tokes, 21-year-old, Ohio State University student from the Toledo area, psychology major who was looking to graduate in May of last year, who never made that graduation because she was executed, point blank, in the head, the handgun. Now, what did the police do next? They didn't know it was Reagan Tokes, so they commenced their investigation. Around the same time, the friends and family of Reagan Tokes were looking for her because she had left Wednesday, February 8th, the day before, around 5 o'clock from her apartment up in the university area on Chittenden. She had left to go to work. She worked part-time at a bar and a restaurant in the short north known as Bodega at 3rd and High Street, only about a mile south of where she lived. And she had worked on Wednesday night, had dinner there, talked with some friends, and left the bar at 9:43. And we have surveillance video at the bar showing her leaving the bar. And she never made it home. She was not seen from or heard from until Mr. Bonner found her body the next day. Her friends and family have been calling her cell phone. For a while they thought, gee, maybe she lost the charge. It's kicking to voicemail. It's no answer. She's not answering. She had class that morning. They thought maybe she went to class first. But eventually they filed a missing person report with the Columbus police, and some of her roommates, who you'll hear from, went to Bodega to say, has anyone seen or heard from Reagan? And over the next hours, they frantically tried to find out where she might be. They filed a missing person report, and around that time, Mr. Bonner was finding the body. And the Grove City Police Department and the Columbus Police Department exchanged information, and Ms. Tokes had a small circular tattoo here in her rib cage area and was wearing jewelry. The only thing left on her body, she's completely nude, left out in that cold weather, shot twice, and it was through that tattoo and a roommate who identified her jewelry that the Grove City Police, in trying to identify Jane Doe, determined it was Reagan Tokes. Well, they put, since her car was missing, a stolen missing report out on the car. Silver Acura, license plate FGR 8547. every police agency here in Franklin County was looking for that car, and eventually found it. And that car had in the back seat a cigarette butt, and on the ground next to that car, which was found outside of 708 Oakwood here in Franklin County, Ohio, they picked up those pieces of cigarettes, sent them to the BCI crime lab, and the BCI experts who we will hear come in here and testify, explain how they cut out a portion of the cigarette butt itself, how they do a DNA extraction, how they compare it in a database and determine this cigarette that was found in the car belonging to Reagan Tokes that had attempted to be burned. In the trunk was a gas can, and there was an effort to destroy the car. It was unsuccessful, but that cigarette that was found both on the ground next to the car and the cigarette butt in the car contained the DNA Brian Lee Golsby. At that point in time, they said, let's find Mr. Golsby, and they took that gas can, however, and determined where it had been purchased at a speedway down a Brown Road, only about a mile west of the courthouse here. They went there and they got some video surveillance from there. And the picture of the person who bought the gas can that was in Miss Tokes' trunk was a picture of Brian Lee Golsby. So he's in her car at the gas station. They can tell when, shortly after midnight at 12:21 a.m. And they said, well, let's see if we can find Mr. Golsby. So they went looking for him. They did find him. And they were able to find out that he was under supervision with the Ohio Adult Parole Authority, and that he had an ankle monitor around his ankle that actually tracked him each and every step of that night of terror for Reagan Tokes. And we will bring an expert in here who will explain a GPS system to you. And this gives you an overview of what they'll say. The university area, there where Bodega is located, where the Chase Bank at 833 South High Street, again a couple blocks south of this courthouse, and at 11:57 p.m. tracked Mr. Golsby right there to Scioto Metro Park. Steps, feet away from where Reagan Tokes' body was found 14 hours later. Now, what the Grove City Police Department did as the chief investigative agency on this case, they said, let's find out about all the information from Ms. Tokes. Does she have a credit card? Does she have a debit card? What bank? Let's check the banks. They went to the Chase Bank, and there's a video surveillance at 10:32 p.m. Remember, Ms. Tokes left Bodega 9:43. 9:45, guess what? At 3rd and Mount Pleasant, there's Mr. Golsby as she's going to where she parked her car. We can track him at 9:45 p.m. at the precise place where she parked her car, and at gunpoint was forced into the car by him. And this device tracks not only location but speed, and within a couple minutes after 9:45, he's gone from walking about 3 miles an hour to moving at 25 miles an hour on 2nd Avenue after he kidnapped her and told her to drive to the bank where there was this attempt to withdraw, which was denied, $200, because there are limits on withdrawals at ATMs, as we all know. Eventually, $60 was withdrawn by Reagan Tokes, and it would have the surveillance video of her at the drive-thru. You can see a shadow figure in the car with her. You can't identify who it is. But guess what again? at 10:32 p.m., that's exactly where Brian Lee Golsby is, while she's withdrawing $60 from the bank. Later on, there's an effort to withdraw money from that location and a Huntington bank a short distance from there. Again, when those attempts were made, which were declined, Brian Lee Golsby's at those locations. Short distance away in German Village, the car stops for about 12 minutes. It's the only time the car stops because we're tracking him. From the very time he left the Linden area that same night, around 7:15 p.m., and we'll tell you who he was with. And those folks will say, gee, he's wearing a white puffy coat. And when tried to move it from the couch, it was heavy, and he said, my gun's in that coat. Let me have it. Those folks will come in here and tell you that. We can see him, again, with video surveillance camera in that white puffy coat getting on a COTA bus and follow him on the COTA route that he took to before he cruised and trolled this area looking for his next victim. His next victim happened to be poor Miss Toast. He went down to Grove City. Reagan drove into Turkey Hill down there on Stringtown Road, filled up the vehicle with gas, went a short distance away. The car stops at 11:57 p.m. and then leaves shortly thereafter. It goes up to the Speedway and then up to the Linden area. The Grove City Police started assembling their case after the defendant was identified and talked to people at his work the next day. He was driving a silver Acura. Reagan Totes' car. It had a funny smell to it, gas. He went up 2 hours. 2 hours after he murdered Reagan Totes, he went back to that same area in the Linden area and gave her Kate Spade purse to a friend of his. We have a photo of Reagan with that purse and with some of her roommates that will identify, but the Grove City Police recovered that purse. And in that same neighborhood, in a sewer in North Linden, they found a handgun. Guess what? Mr. Golsby can be tracked to that same location in the early morning hours after the murder, dumping the murder weapon. The defendant is finally found and arrested by the Grove City Police, and he commences to do, over a series of hours, a series of lies. First, he didn't know what they were talking about. Second, he only robbed her. Third, he dropped her off at the park, never saw her after that. Fourth, well, he did rob her, but he didn't rape her or kill her. He's never killed anybody. Over this period of time, in trying to interrogate him, the detectives asked him, well, was anybody else with you? And he said, oh yeah, I hadn't told you. I've been talking to you for hours. I haven't told you. There's a mysterious fella named TJ. I don't know who he is, but he was the one that is responsible for this murder. Just so happens that at the autopsy, a rape kit was done on Reagan Totes, and that rape kit found semen and sperm in her anal cavity. And guess what? When sent to BCI, the BCI experts, again, who looked at the cigarettes, also looked at the rape kit. They said, Brian Lee Golsby's semen and sperm are in the anal cavity of Reagan Totes. They then do a search warrant at the residence that he lives, that, guess what, is only a couple blocks away from the car they found. Reagan Tokes' car, the silver Acura, is found on Oakwood. He lives on Forest, just several streets away. They do a search warrant, and among the items they take there is the clothing that he was wearing that night. And Reagan Tokes had been shot in her left temple area, and the gun that was used to kill her was so close that there's gunpowder in the wound. But when a gun fires, the experts that will come in here and testify, there's a blowback of gunpowder forward and backwards. And the clothing he was wearing that night on the sleeve has what we call gunshot residue, showing, in their professional opinion, the person wearing that had recently fired a handgun or another weapon. So we have his DNA in her body. We have him on surveillance video buying the gas can that's in her trunk. We have the GSR on his clothing. And finally, he, in trying to blame this fella, TJ, who he claimed he went to middle school with, he said, well, yeah, we dumped the gun. I'll take you to where the gun is. They found the gun, where he had been tracked to earlier on the GPS device, in the sewer. He took them to where the gun was. They wouldn't have found that gun had he not taken it. He dumped the gun there. And he dumped the gun in one sewer, and across the street he dumped 2 casings. The experts looked at that gun, and the casings were fired from that gun. And at the autopsy, the bullet was taken out of Ms. Tokes' head because she had 2 wounds, one on the left temple, one at the base of her neck. The one on the left temple went completely through her brain and was found by personnel at the coroner's office, and the bloody matted hair on the right side of her head and fell out when her body was taken out of the body bag. It had been used to transport her to the coroner's office. The Grove City Police Department, during that interview, learned that Mr. Golsby, as he continued to lie and blame his fellow TJ, they learned what his explanation was, and he admitted only enough progressively that he learned that they could prove, but didn't, at least then, back off of this mysterious fellow as being the person responsible that had actually forced him, because he knew he had to explain his DNA that was in her anal cavity. He claimed that he was forced to anally rape her by this mysterious TJ. He claimed that TJ marched her out in the field and murdered her. He claimed that to Jennifer Nickel and Brittany Stepp for months afterwards as they visited him in the jail, saying, I didn't do this. I was involved in the abduction. I was involved in the theft, but I didn't do the murder. Well, there came a time when he finally told Jennifer Nickel, who's the mother of his child, who was visiting him in the jail, that I did it. I killed that girl for her money. $60 that he got. And the same night that he gave that Kate Spade purse to his friend in the Linden area, he gave her $60. So the fruits of this crime, within hours after the murder, are given to a friend of his, and he tells the mother of his child that he needed to abduct and steal money from her because he needed the money. The state will be able to show you, with about 25 witnesses and a little short of maybe 100 exhibits, what the defendant did and when he did it, and track him throughout this crime, terrible, terrible crime. We'll be able to show it happened here in Franklin County. Her friends will come in here and identify that purse. The detectives will tell you about recovering the gun and that hoodie with the gunshot residue on it. We'll have a video surveillance from the bus, from the purchase of the gas can he used to torch or attempt to torch the car. And we'll play you the series of lies that he told those Grove City detectives trying to covering up his tracks before we had the forensic evidence that would show the kidnapping, rape, aggravated robbery, and murder of Reagan Tokes. The judge will explain in detail to you the charges contained in the indictment. They are aggravated murder done purposely and with prior calculation and design. And each of them, we mentioned during the jury selection process, carry specifications, a firearm specification, death penalty specifications that the crime was done in the course of kidnapping, a rape, an aggravated robbery, and done for the purposes of avoiding detection, apprehension, or prosecution for the primary offenses. He also is charged with tampering with evidence, which is the gun, the casings in the sewer, and the attempt to set the car on fire. The state, as the defense, has this opportunity to tell you what we're going to prove. We expect to prove each and every one of those counts in the indictment and the specifications, and expect to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. And expect also, in closing argument, to submit to you we have proven it beyond that standard. I thank you for your attention, and look forward to presenting that evidence to satisfy you with your burden. Thank you.